December 1944. The Ardennes forest. Obergefreiter Klaus Becker crouches inside his disabled Panther tank, fingers numb, stomach cramping from hunger. Outside, snow falls on the bodies of American defenders. The smell of cordite still hangs in the frozen air. His loader, Hans, kicks open an abandoned American half-track. Inside, wooden crates stacked to the ceiling. "Klaus, come see this." Klaus stumbles through knee-deep snow, opens the first crate. His hands shake. Not from cold this time. Inside are dozens of small brown boxes. K-ration boxes, American field rations. What Klaus discovers in the next 10 minutes will fundamentally change how he understands this war. And why, despite everything, the Americans keep fighting when any sane army would have broken. To understand what Klaus found, you need to understand what he'd been eating for the past 3 years. The German army in 1944 was starving. Not metaphorically, literally starving. Since 1943, Wehrmacht rations had been progressively reduced. The standard field ration, called the Eiserne portion, or iron ration, consisted of a tin of preserved meat, some hardtack biscuits, and occasionally ersatz coffee made from roasted acorns. If you were lucky, you got a cube of hard cheese. On good days, maybe some jam. Daily caloric intake for frontline German troops? Around 2,000 calories. Compare that to the 3,200 calories German quartermasters calculated a combat soldier actually needed. Klaus Becker knew hunger intimately. The 22-year-old tank commander from a small farming village outside Stuttgart had joined the Panzer forces in 1942, full of idealism and propaganda. By late 1944, ideology had been replaced by something more primal: survival. Klaus had watched his crew lose weight steadily. His gunner, Friedrich, had dropped from 82 kilograms to 61. Hans, the loader, had developed scurvy from vitamin deficiency. Their driver, Otto, suffered from constant digestive problems because the ersatz bread they received was cut with sawdust to stretch supplies. The Soviet advance in the east had cut off agricultural regions. Allied bombing had destroyed supply lines. The Kriegsmarine couldn't break the Atlantic blockade. Food that did reach the front was often spoiled, frozen, or simply insufficient. German tankers had it worse than infantry. Cramped in metal boxes for hours, burning calories to stay warm in sub-zero temperatures, they needed more food, not less. But the Panzers ran on increasingly scarce fuel, and supply trucks prioritized ammunition and gasoline over hot meals. Klaus's crew hadn't had a warm meal in 6 days. They'd been eating snow to stay hydrated, sharing a single tin of meat paste among 5 men. Supplementing with whatever they could scavenge from abandoned Belgian farmhouses, usually nothing. This was standard. This was normal. This was the Wehrmacht in December 1944. Then the Ardennes offensive began. Operation Wacht am Rhein, Germany's last major offensive in the West, launched on December 16th. Klaus's unit punched through the American lines in the first 2 days. The surprise was total. American units scattered. But something strange happened. Unlike the French in 1940, unlike the Soviets in 1941, the Americans didn't collapse. They bent. They retreated. They took staggering casualties. But they kept fighting. Klaus's Panther, number 217, had knocked out 3 American Shermans near Malmedy. Every engagement followed the same pattern. Outgunned American armor would engage, take hits, fall back, but never break entirely. They'd regroup, return with infantry support, force Klaus's crew to withdraw to refuel and rearm. On December 20th, Klaus's luck ran out. An American M10 tank destroyer, concealed in a bombed-out barn, put a 3-inch shell through his Panther's transmission. The hit didn't penetrate the fighting compartment, but it immobilized the tank, dead in the snow. A 45-ton paperweight. His crew bailed out, expecting a follow-up round. None came. The American crew had already displaced, following doctrine, shoot and scoot. Klaus made the decision. Salvage what they could and fall back to German lines on foot. 3 kilometers through enemy territory. But first, his men needed to eat something. Anything. That's when Hans found the Halftrack. The American M3 Halftrack sat abandoned in a ravine, partially covered by snow. Its engine had been disabled, probably by its own crew to prevent capture. But the cargo bay remained sealed. Hans forced the rear doors, stared. Mein Gott. Wooden crates, dozens of them, stenciled labels, U.S. Army, Field Ration, Type K, Supper Unit. Klaus climbed in beside him. His tactical mind calculated immediately. This was a supply vehicle. It had been carrying rations forward. How much? He counted quickly. 40 crates, each containing. He pried one open. 24 individual ration boxes. Nearly 1,000 complete meals. For frontline American soldiers. The contrast was staggering. Klaus had seen captured American equipment before. The Shermans, the Jeeps, the radios. But this was something different. This wasn't technology. This was care. This was logistics taken to an almost absurd extreme. He pulled out a single K-ration box, turned it over in his hands. The cardboard was waxed, waterproof, smart. The box itself bore printing, dietary information, contents listed in English. Friedrich, his gunner, appeared at the Halftrack's entrance. What is it? Klaus tossed him a box. American rations. Help me carry what we can. They each grabbed armfuls, as much as they could carry, and still moved tactically. Maybe 8 boxes per man. 40 complete meals among 5 soldiers. Klaus cracked open the first box as they moved through the tree line. What he found inside rewrote his understanding of warfare. Klaus tears open the Supper Unit K-ration as they crouch behind a frozen hedgerow. His fingers, clumsy with cold, struggle with the waxed cardboard. Inside, wrapped individually, a can of meat, pork and egg product, a packet of 4 crackers, a compressed cereal bar, a packet of synthetic lemon juice powder, 4 cigarettes, Chesterfields, matches, chewing gum, toilet paper, a wooden spoon, sugar tablets, and a small packet of water purification tablets. Klaus stares. This isn't a ration. This is a care package. He uses the attached P38 can opener, a tiny folding lever built into the ration box itself, to open the meat can. The mechanism is brilliant. Simple, effective. It takes him 15 seconds to open a sealed can with one hand. The meat inside is cold but edible. He takes a bite. The taste hits him like a physical force. Rich, fatty, actual pork, not horse meat, not mystery paste, identifiable protein. Hans opens his box, a dinner unit. Inside, a can of processed cheese, crackers, a chocolate bar, another chocolate bar, fruit bar, more cigarettes, instant coffee, real coffee, not acorn substitute. Powdered orange drink. Hans bites into the chocolate. His eyes close. Got him Himmel. Friedrich discovers his box contains ham and eggs, along with a packet of hard candy. Otto finds one with beef and pork loaf. They eat in silence, too hungry to speak. But Klaus's mind races. Each box provides roughly 2,800, 3,200 calories. Each American soldier receives 3 of these per day. Breakfast, dinner, supper units. That's nearly 10,000 calories available if needed. But it's not just the calories. It's the vitamins, the synthetic lemon juice, ascorbic acid to prevent scurvy, the variety, 3 different meals per day, preventing monotony, the cigarettes, 4 packs per day for morale, the gum, for thirst and stress, the toilet paper, dignity in the field. Someone had thought about everything. Someone had engineered these boxes with the assumption that soldiers deserved not just survival, but comfort. Klaus remembers the last special ration his unit received. A half-liter of schnapps per man before the offensive. Liquid courage to replace actual food. He examines the waxed cardboard box again. Notices the printing isn't just functional, it's designed. The box includes cooking instructions, dietary information, even a reassuring message about the ration's nutritional completeness. American soldiers carried 3 of these boxes at all times, each weighing less than a kilogram, compact enough to fit in cargo pockets, waterproof, durable. The boxes themselves could be used as fuel for heating if needed. The engineering was remarkable, but the philosophy behind it was revolutionary. Otto, the driver, voices what they're all thinking. They feed their soldiers like this, every day. Klaus nods slowly. Every single day. Frontline troops, rear echelon, everyone. But why? Hans asks. It's so much. The cost alone. Friedrich answers, his voice quiet. Because they can. The implication settles over the crew like the falling snow. Germany had launched this war with the expectation of quick victories. Blitzkrieg, lightning war. Defeat the enemy before logistics become critical. The entire Wehrmacht strategy depended on capturing enemy supplies, living off conquered territory. America had built a war machine around the opposite philosophy. Overwhelming logistical superiority. Produce so much, tanks, bullets, food, fuel, that victory becomes inevitable through sheer material weight. Klaus opens a second ration box, then a third, each slightly different, each carefully balanced. He calculates quickly, 40 crates in that half-track, nearly 1,000 rations. That's 1 day supply for 330 men, or a 3-day supply for 110. A single supply vehicle, one of thousands. How many more vehicles were out there? How many more crates? How deep were American supply lines? He thinks about his own logistics. The Panther tank they'd abandoned needed 200 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers. Fuel that increasingly didn't exist. His crew's last hot meal came from a field kitchen 6 days ago. Ammunition was rationed. Spare parts were non-existent, cannibalized from destroyed vehicles. And here, scattered across a Belgian forest, the Americans had casually abandoned enough rations to feed his entire company for a week. Klaus crushes the empty K-ration box in his fist. The waxed cardboard crinkles. "We can't win this," he says aloud. The other men look at him sharply. Such talk is dangerous. Defeatism can mean execution. But Friedrich nods. No, we can't. They reach German lines just after midnight. Klaus reports to his company commander, Hauptmann Wolf, a career officer, Iron Cross First Class, veteran of France and Russia. Klaus delivers his tactical report. Panther 217 lost. The crew intact. Enemy M10 encountered. Area saturated with American forces. Wolf nods, makes notes. Standard stuff. Then Klaus mentions the supply half-track. The rations. The sheer abundance. Wolf's pen stops moving. How many rations? 40 crates, Herr Hauptmann. Approximately 1,000 complete meals. In a single vehicle? Jawohl. Wolf leans back, lighting a cigarette, a precious resource. You brought some back? Klaus's crew had carried 40 boxes between them, 8 per man. Klaus produces them now, stacking them on Wolf's field desk. Wolf picks one up, examines it, opens it with a little P38 opener, smells the meat product inside. They issue these to frontline troops? According to the markings, yes, sir. 3 per day. Wolf does the same calculation Klaus had done. His face hardens. Get some rest, Obergefreiter. Report to assembly point at 600. But Wolf doesn't dismiss the subject. Over the next 3 days, as the Ardennes offensive grinds to a halt, he quietly distributes the captured K-rations among officers. not as food, though many are hungry enough to eat them, but as intelligence. Know your enemy. Other units report similar findings. An entire warehouse of American rations captured near Bastogne. A supply dump at St. Vith containing not just food, but winter clothing, insulated boots, thermal underwear, wool socks. A field hospital with more morphine and antibiotics than most German rear area hospitals. The pattern is consistent, overwhelming, undeniable. German intelligence officers compile reports. The American logistical system supplies 66 pounds of supplies per soldier per day. By contrast, the Wehrmacht supplies roughly 30 pounds per soldier per day, and that's when supply lines function properly. The Americans are outproducing Germany in every category. 96,000 aircraft in 1944 versus Germany's 40,000, 17,000 tanks versus 9,000. Food, fuel, ammunition, vehicles. The disparity is staggering. But it's the rations that stick with soldiers like Klaus. Because unlike abstract production statistics, a K-ration box is tangible, immediate, human. Some German soldiers interpret the captured rations as proof of American softness. Spoiled troops who need chocolate and cigarettes to fight. Klaus knows better. Troops fight harder when they're well fed. They recover faster. They maintain discipline. They don't desert in search of food. They trust their supply system, which means they trust their commanders, which means they obey orders even in desperate circumstances. The Americans at Bastogne, surrounded and outnumbered, had held for days despite everything. Not because of superior tactics or equipment. They held because they knew, with absolute certainty, that supplies would reach them. That food, ammunition, and medical care were coming. German soldiers had no such certainty. Every attack meant rationing ammunition. Every position held meant stretching food that was already insufficient. Trust in the supply system had eroded completely. Klaus sees it in his own crew. Hans's scurvy worsens. Otto's digestive problems become severe enough to require medical evacuation. But the medical transport doesn't arrive for 4 days. And when it does, the aid station has no medicine to spare. By January 1945, the Ardennes offensive collapses. German forces retreat, leaving behind thousands of destroyed vehicles, abandoned equipment, and casualties they can't evacuate. Klaus's company reassembles east of the Rhine. Of 14 Panther tanks that began the offensive, 3 remain operational. Klaus gets a new tank, a worn-out Panzer IV cannibalized from 2 destroyed vehicles. He still carries 2 K-ration boxes in his personal kit. He doesn't eat them, keeps them as a reminder. The story of Klaus Becker and the captured K-rations illustrates a truth that military historians sometimes overlook. Wars are won not just by soldiers or weapons, but by logistics. By the unglamorous, mundane work of feeding armies, supplying ammunition, evacuating wounded, and maintaining equipment. The K-ration itself, designed by physiologist Ancel Keys in 1941, represented a revolution in military logistics. Lightweight, nutritionally complete, durable, and mass-produced. By 1945, the United States was producing 105 million K-rations annually. But the ration was just one piece of a larger system. The American logistical effort in World War II was unprecedented in human history. The Red Ball Express delivered 12,000 tons of supplies daily to frontline troops. Liberty ships crossed the Atlantic in convoys, replacing losses faster than German U-boats could sink them. The Army Quartermaster Corps employed over 500,000 soldiers, more than the entire Wehrmacht Panzer force. Germany, by contrast, had built a war machine around ideological fervor and tactical excellence, assuming that willpower and superior training could overcome material deficits. By 1944, that assumption had failed catastrophically. Soviet archives reveal similar German assessments on the Eastern Front. Captured Soviet rations, while less varied than American ones, still outstripped German food supplies. Lend-Lease shipments from America, provided the Red Army with 4.5 million tons of food. Spam, powdered eggs, and processed cheese fed the Soviet advance into Germany. The Germans faced enemies who could afford to feed their soldiers properly, who could replace losses, who could sustain offensives not through desperate gambling, but through methodical, overwhelming material superiority. Klaus Becker survived the war. Captured by Americans in March 1945, he spent 2 years in a POW camp in France. He returned to Stuttgart in 1947, resumed farming, married, raised 3 children. He died in 1989, just after the Berlin Wall fell. In a 1978 interview with a local historian, Klaus mentioned the K-rations specifically. "I knew we'd lost the war the moment I opened that box. Not because of what was in it, though that was impressive enough. I knew we'd lost because of what it represented. It meant America could afford to care about whether its soldiers had chewing gum and toilet paper, could afford to design special waterproof boxes, could afford to deliver 3 different meals per day to every single soldier, everywhere, always. That level of care, that attention to detail, it showed a depth of resources and organizational capability we simply couldn't match. You can't defeat an enemy who treats their lowest private better than you treat your tank commanders." The K-ration was discontinued in 1948, replaced by the C-ration. But its legacy persists. Modern MREs, meals ready to eat, follow the same philosophy. Keep soldiers fed, comfortable, and confident in their supply system, because armies march on their stomachs. Napoleon said that. The Americans built an empire around it. And in a frozen Belgian forest in December 1944, a young German tank commander learned that lesson the hardest way possible, by discovering exactly how much his enemy could afford to care. The question we should ask ourselves isn't whether logistics wins wars. History has answered that definitively. The question is, what are we willing to invest in the people who fight for us? What do our choices reveal about what we value? Klaus Becker figured out the answer when he opened that first K-ration box. America valued its soldiers enough to give them chocolate bars and toilet paper in the middle of a world war. Germany hadn't valued its soldiers enough to give them adequate food. In the end, that made all the difference.